Welcome to NewsRap Local. I'm your host, Justin Chapman.
Pasadena's redistricting task force has 3 new members: Patrice Marshall McKenzie, Delano Yarborough, and Adriana Lim. Marshall McKenzie recently applied to the city's new Community Police Oversight Commission. Yarborough is a former Pasadena NAACP president, and Lim serves on the city's Human Relations Commission. The 3 new additions will join Vince Farr, Rita Moreno, former Mayor Terry Tornick, former council member Margaret McAustin, David Coer, Donald C. Nanny, Jordan Vanini, Jeff Baum, and Francis Chen to use recently collected census data to recommend changes to Pasadena City Council district boundaries. Pasadena's mayor, Victor Gordo, had said he would ask the city council for recommendations to improve racial diversity on the task force, which until now had no African American members, causing concerns among some local residents. McKenzie and Yarborough fill that void. Every 10 years, the city council is mandated to use population data from the census to determine if any adjustments need to be made to council district boundaries. Rose Bowl officials have taken part in virtual conferences with FIFA and U.S. Soccer in an effort to bring the 2026 World Cup to Pasadena. The 2026 World Cup is set to take place in locations across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. LA is bidding for the opportunity to host multiple matches, a fan festival, and other events. The host committee is expecting FIFA to finalize the list of 16 host cities from a candidate list of 23 by the end of this year. The Rose Bowl has discussed logistics related to potentially hosting World Cup games with SoFi Stadium in Inglewood in conferences led by the LA World Cup Host Committee. Rose Bowl CEO and General Manager Daryl Dunn said, "To think we could have the honor of hosting the 2026 FIFA World Cup would be incredible. We are proud of our history, which includes playing host to the 1994 FIFA Men's World Cup Final and the 1999 FIFA Women's Cup World Final. And we hope to once again welcome the world to Pasadena in 2026. Pasadena Police Chief John Perez plans to retire at the beginning of 2022. The 37-year veteran started his career with the department in 1987. Under Perez, the department successfully implemented its first reorganization in decades, with no additional cost to the city budget. He established a critical performance team to design, implement, and review use of force and de-escalation techniques. He drove the change to replace an antiquated gang enforcement model with an intelligence-led crime-fighting program, a wellness unit, new training curriculums, and a critical performance unit, all to increase performance, reduce stress, and improve de-escalation. Perez is also credited with increased diversity in the department, adding more women and persons of color to the rank and file as well as leadership. Perez has been under fire from critics since he cleared officers involved in the 2017 violent stop of Christopher Ballou. Perez told Pasadena Now that the incident is not a factor in his decision to retire. Chief John Perez will officially end his career with the PPD after one final Rose Parade and Rose Bowl game.
Thank you for tuning in. After providing a few brief updates on various local stories, we'll take a deeper look at police community relations in Pasadena. We have 2 guests today, filmmakers Dennis Haywood and James Farr, who will join us in a few minutes to talk about their recent film about Pasadena police and subsequent scholarship. On a related note, the Pasadena City Council meeting this past Monday was canceled at the last minute because of a planned rally called Justice for Anthony Mclean, a rally demanding accountability, which took place at City Hall. Mclean, of course, is a 32-year-old black man who was shot in the back and killed by Pasadena police officer Edwin DeMcGuindon last August. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who represented George Floyd's family, local lawyer Carrie Harper, and members of George Floyd's family attended the rally and called for the officer to be fired. The rally had been planned well in advance, so it's unclear why the council meeting had to be canceled at the last minute. This comes on the heels of Police Chief John Perez's announcement that he will retire in early 2022. Last month, we broke the news that he was thinking about stepping down right here on NewsRap Local, and now the announcement is official. But first, let's turn to our lightning round of news updates. One, although the CDC issued new guidance for vaccinated people saying they no longer have to wear masks outdoors or indoors, except in certain situations like public transportation and medical settings, Pasadena's public health department has not loosened mask mandates in the city just yet. California will loosen the statewide mask mandate restrictions as of June 15th. But the city has started vaccinating 12 to 15-year-olds. More than 80% of Pasadenans have received at least one shot. LA County is expected to reach herd immunity by July. We're making a lot of progress, but one look at places like India tell us that this pandemic is not over yet. Beautiful, historic Pasadena Central Library, first constructed in 1924 by Myron Hunt, has been closed indefinitely due to earthquake unsafe structural issues. Why is it taking it so long to figure this out? And what's it going to take to get it back open? Last week, a federal judge heard arguments in the city of Pasadena's bid to toss a lawsuit brought by the Tournament of Roses Association over rights to the name and trademarks for the Rose Bowl game. The judge made no decision at the hearing. Pasadena Unified School District reported that 49.6% of its 15,100 students were still attending only online instruction as of last week. 45.9% of students had returned to school in person. Those figures roughly correlate to what the county and state are seeing as well. Last month, the district shifted to the option of a hybrid learning model. After biologists discovered birds were nesting in trees along the routes that trucks were using to haul out sediment from the Devil's Gate Reservoir, work was halted for 2 weeks. Now trucks are removing sediment, with the project still ahead of schedule. Work is expected to be finished by the end of November, before a year-long habitat restoration project can begin. This was a contentious project, and I know local environmentalists are watching that situation very closely because of dust and emissions and habitat disruption. 3 additional people have been added to the city's redistricting task force, which will use census data to recommend changes to city council district boundaries. The move was intended to add more diversity to the group because the original task force had no African American community members. The city's planning department will soon deliver a report to the city council on the city's climate action plan, a long-term plan to reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions and make them consistent with statewide targets. The plan includes 5 principal strategies to achieve the city's greenhouse gas reduction goals: sustainable mobility and land use, energy efficiency and conservation, water conservation, waste reduction, and urban greening. The city's proposed operating budget, including city-affiliated agencies and the city's capital improvement projects, totals $897.8 million, exactly $20 million more than the last fiscal year's adopted budget. The City Council will soon begin an ongoing series of public hearings on the budget over the next few weeks. Due to the pandemic, some revenue sources could take as long as 4 years to get back to pre-COVID levels. Rose Bowl officials have been meeting with FIFA and U.S. soccer officials regarding hosting World Cup 2026 games here in Pasadena. That tournament will take place in stadiums across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and feature an expanded group of teams from 48 countries. Who knows, maybe that means the U.S. men's team will qualify this time. The Rose Bowl has held numerous international soccer matches over the years, and it is the only venue in the world that has ever been the host of the gold medal match of the Olympics in 1984 and the final matches of the men's and women's World Cups in 1994 and 1999, respectively. Rose Bowl General Manager Daryl Dunn told me in 2018 that soccer is an essential piece of the Rose Bowl's long-term financial viability. And finally, throughout California, the 3rd week of May was officially declared Roxy's Wish, Drowning Prevention Week for Children, in honor of Roxy Forbes, the 6-year-old who tragically drowned almost 2 years ago at Summer Kids Camp in Altadena. That legislation was authored by Assemblymember Chris Holden, who represents Pasadena, and is a result of Roxy's parents' ongoing public awareness campaign. That continued this week with a week-long series of virtual events that concluded today. Called Roxy's Wish, the series featured presentations by local officials such as Holden, Pasadena Mayor Victor Gordo, former Pasadena Mayor Terry Tornick, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, State Senator Anthony Portantino, and several musical artists and Olympic gold medal winning athletes. The series also included more than 80 videos with safety resources for parents, kids, and community members, and the stories of families impacted by drownings. All of the videos are still available on their organization's website, meowmeowfoundation.org. Roxy's parents formed the foundation to develop water safety and camp safety programs that protect young lives and eliminate preventable childhood drowning deaths and catastrophic injuries at camps. They work directly with local elected officials to draft legislation to strengthen pool and open water safety policies, develop programming for schools, and address the existing deficiency in camp licensing, inspection, and oversight. Visit meowmeowfoundation.org to learn more and find out how you can help. Let's patch in our guests, filmmakers Dennis Haywood and James Farr. Gentlemen, welcome to NewsRap Local. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us, Justin.
Dennis serves as editor-in-chief and publisher of the Pasadena Black Pages. James is the host of the hyper-local talk show, The Conversation Live, which regularly airs on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific. Their film is Thorns on the Rose, Black Abuse, Corruption, and the Pasadena Police, directed by Dennis and produced by James and Rochelle Jones. It was released on Vimeo on April 8th. The 63-minute documentary examines the last 40 years of Pasadena's police-community relationship, with a particular focus on the officer-involved killings of Black men, including Michael Bryant, Kendrick McDade, Reginald Thomas Jr., Anthony Mclean, and tragically others. The documentary is a gripping and emotionally charged expose that places viewers directly into the intensity and trauma experienced by impacted grieving families and communities. It features footage from critical incidents and features civil rights attorney Ben Crump, Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon, and Pasadena Police Chief John Perez. So why don't you start us off, Dennis, telling us about why you made this film and what the response has been so far?
We made the film out of getting news footage at first. It was just a bunch of footage, stuff that we covered. And then last summer, I was like, we should make a film out of all of the stuff that we have. And because it's a lot of brutality with the police in Pasadena. And then Anthony Mclean got killed. After the film was done, actually, that happened. So that just added, that let me know that we was doing the right thing at the right time because it needed to be done at this time, And the reaction has been great. People want to know. They want to know what's going on because it's two sides to Pasadena,
Yeah, and there will be a virtual screening of the film this Saturday, May 22nd at 6:30 p.m. through Boston Court. Tickets are available for that, $10 on Eventbrite. And then proceeds from that screening will go to the Anthony Mclean Social Justice Scholarship, right? So that's a good segue to that. Tell us about the scholarship, how to come about, how much is it at now? What are the requirements and the deadline and those details?
So at first, when we made the film, we made it and put it out. So there was no scholarship at first because when you do something like this, you never know if it's going to make money or not. Mm-hmm. So once the first weekend went by, I called James and I said, hey, let's give away $1,000 scholarship. The film is making money, so let's just give a scholarship away. And that's how it started. And right now, the scholarship is at $7,000.
That's great. So it's the idea is to turn a tragedy or a series of tragedies into something that could benefit the community.
Most definitely. And give a kid an opportunity to have a scholarship, unlike most kids from this community get. They don't get scholarships that large, to help them and make life easier in college. And that's a big thing because it's lack of opportunity, but then even sometimes when you get the opportunity, it's so hard to make it through that you give up and you drop out of college. So we would just want to make it a little easier for some kid, and they need it in the community. The community is coming together to give this scholarship. It's not just the film, it's other people in the community that are giving to make sure that we do something positive from that tragedy, because that it's a repeated tragedy and we tired of it. So we just wanted to change the narrative a little bit to show that, it's other young men in this community too, who deserve a chance to be better than what they are.
And the deadline to apply for that, I believe, is May 28th, right? And so they can go on PasadenaBlackPages.com and get the application and send it in to you.
Yes, go to thornsontheroads.com.
Okay.
And they could go to Friends of the Miracle Mile to donate directly through the nonprofit.
Yeah, I'm going to ask if people want to contribute, so they can go there. Pasadena Police Chief John Perez just recently announced his retirement effective early 2022. For both of you, why do you think he's retiring now? Why is he announcing it so far in advance? And then what's your assessment of his performance?
Ooh, that's a lot to unpack, Justin. Why? I don't know. I think the bigger question is if the chief has tendered his resignation, if he's decided that he's planning to retire. My question to him directly was, why wait? Why not afford Deputy Chief Cheryl Moody the same opportunity that he was afforded when Chief Sanchez abruptly resigned? It would give her an opportunity to kind of drive the car, so to speak, run the department, give the community opportunity to see if she is in fact someone that the community would be willing to stand behind and support. As for the chief's performance, I mean, the chief made some I would say some decent efforts to try to build some community. But when the Ballou review came back, when the disposition of Officer Mclean happened following the Anthony Mclean homicide, it really makes you question, really makes you wonder, is his priority serving and protecting the community, or is he circling the wagons and protecting the house? I think he's a nice person. I think he's very affable, but I also think that he's a police officer, and that first instinct is to protect officers and not, the constituency, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. And James, you interviewed Perez and Moody on your show recently. And she said explicitly she wants the chief job. It's going to be interesting to see if the city follows up on that. And like you said, affords her the same opportunity that Perez got when Sanchez left. Compared to Sanchez, Perez did make some steps in the right direction, but I think you're right with the recent Christopher Ballou decision, and then the ongoing Mclean situation. On your show, Perez basically argued, his argument is basically people need to cooperate with the police when the police stop them, even if they disagree with the reason for being stopped. And your response was, well, where's the humanity in that law enforcement response? And also what I don't get with these killing is a lot of people say, well, he did something wrong. But the police aren't supposed to kill people even if they do something wrong. So there needs to be a mindset shift here in terms of how we as a society are looking at these incidents.
Sure. Well, let's be real, Justin. Police kill. They're violence workers, right? That's what we pay them to do. They've killed in the past, and they will, use force again, and it very well may escalate up to where someone is losing their life. I had the same point of contention with Chief Sanchez, complain later. And that's problematic because you have officers, chief of police who swear an oath to the Constitution. And there's two problems in that. They're asking US citizens to forfeit their constitutional right by just complying and then complaining. There's nothing illegal with objecting to a stop. The second thing about that is, in all of the discussion and conversation, he talks about implicit and explicit bias, the science that's involved, and his complete understanding. We talked about cooperation and de-escalation and officers' presence being a trigger point, that the human response is fight, flight, or freeze to any threat, whether you're blue, black, or green. And so when the public is contacted, when I believe in my head, when Anthony Mclean was contacted by those two officers, he was triggered into a fight, flight, or freeze. And that should not rise to the point to where he's fleeing, running away in a full stride and shot in the back. I just don't understand it.
Yeah. Dennis, what would you like to see happen with the Anthony Mclean shooting with the officer? You want to see the officer fired, or what steps can the department take to to address this tragedy and to start to gain back community trust?
Well, that would start with Perez resigning immediately instead of taking the coward's way out under adversity, because it's a lot of heat on him right now, and he doesn't want Cheryl Moody to be the next chief. It's politics. So he announced his retirement so they'll find someone else. He needs to go. The officer needs to be fired. And then we could start restoring some trust with the community. But as long as he's here, there is no trust, because actually he hasn't done a better job than Sanchez, because the police who kill are all still on the force. So they're all the same. It's no better. He's no better. He lied to us about the incident and said that Anthony Mclean had a gun and was turning, and he's no different. They all police. And until we get a police chief here that really cares about the community and can understand and communicate with the community, then we just treading.
Yeah, and this past Monday, civil rights attorney Ben Crump, local lawyer Carrie Harper, members of George Floyd's family attended a rally at Pasadena City Hall for Anthony Mclean. And one question that always baffles me is, why don't these Pasadena shootings get the same national attention as some of these other killings that we've seen across the country?
Well, this one has now gotten that attention. And I don't know how much time we have in this segment, but you would have to go back to around August, I want to say 18th, when the initial hour and 47-minute long press conference happened. Dennis and I both were in attendance, as well as some other local press. And, as we walked in, there's news vans outside that weren't allowed in. And so I believe there was some intentionality in trying to keep it local. But now, as he has become known, the Black Attorney General, Ben Crump, is on the case. There's no keeping that in the bottle anymore. It's out, it's national news. And officers in this city are going to be more scrutinized now than ever before. And I think Thorns on the Rose provides a proper context for anyone who's unfamiliar or may only know about the Rose Parade. Here's a 60-minute hard, trauma, raw film that just catches you completely up to date with the history. So it's not just a one-off situation. There's pathology involved with how members in the community respond to law enforcement. And it didn't start yesterday. It didn't start with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, or even Anthony Mclean. This has been a systemic problem and a historic problem that, because of the size of our city, because it's so small, it's very problematic that all of these homicides are happening in one section of the city, and particularly into one group of people. And so it's time to kind of unpack that, plant that seed, and really let this film blossom into, bringing people aware of what's really happening here in Pasadena with some members in our community.
Yeah, so thank you both, James Farr, Dennis Haywood. Thank you both for coming on the show. I really appreciate you providing us your insights on this.
Thanks for having us, Justin. Congratulations on the new hosting job.
Thanks.